This is part 2 of my Eclipse guide, Alternative DPS and Strategies. This video will cover some alternative DPS and the death protection strategy, and the run killer wave 26 through 29. We'll start with the below meta DPS. If you're looking to build a hero specifically for Eclipse, I recommend you watch my part 1 video for the meta DPS. This is more to help people who have heroes already raised and want to try to succeed in Eclipse. I don't have first-hand experience with any of these heroes, and results will vary. Maruru has incredible ramping potential, able to gain 800 attack speed and up to 70% additional attack power, which makes her extremely strong for destroying monster waves. Her single target damage is lacking though, so I would highly consider bringing a single target DPS to come with her. Kayn has much stronger single target DPS potential with his S2 Light, able to deal significant damage to single targets one after another. With this attack power, as long as he has sufficient attack speed, he can actually clear waves at a pretty modest pace. By using his T5 Dark at his low HP, he can actually easily trigger the Primer of Heroes, which will give him a huge attack speed, and toughness buff. And since you're relying on shields to keep yourself safe, the toughness buff will help with the shield duration. Tanya's S2 Dark and UT2 enables her to have a low cooldown and high mana recovery to spam her S2 to dispatch monster waves, saving her S3 to deal with boss waves, and using S1 to dive behind bosses where you can safely damage them without the risk of the AoE frontal attacks. Her unique weapon effect allows her to negate the need of the Spirit Morph Ring that other DPS have to use. Mirian's a DPS that has the ability to get resets and mana recovery from her T5 Dark. Because of her S1's low cooldown, she also has significant boss damage dealing potential. Using S3 on monster waves, she can take out a single enemy, trigger the S2 to deal AoE damage, and then combo off the T5 Dark proccing. Even with the T5 Dark though, the mana consumption can be quite high, so make sure to have some MP attack on her. Luna's S2 with UT2 enables her to have high AoE damage on clustered enemies and reset to dispatch monster waves. She can also use it to hit bosses 3 times. The mana cost is extremely high though, so mana recovery will be the biggest issue with running Luna. Her T5 Dark does give her 30% increased non-hero damage, which will make her quite strong for damage output comparative to some other heroes. Cleo's AoE damage is extremely high, thus she should be able to dispatch monster waves extremely quickly. Though do note that most monster waves only have 4 enemies, there are a couple that do have more, so I would recommend taking S3 Light over S3 Dark in this instance. Using T5 Dark you can inflict Emperor stacks, so that way she can get those S3 resets. Her boss damage is lacking, so I strongly suggest that you bring a single target DPS to accompany her. Maria, by utilizing her T5 Dark, is able to rapidly spam S1 and S3 on the monster waves. This allows her to inflict both Amp and M-Shred through her abilities. UT3 can be used to add more S3 damage and defense shred, or you can utilize UT4 to allow her to ramp up her attack for more overall damage. Her damage output versus bosses will not be as high as other options though, so we would recommend bringing a single target DPS to accompany her. And lastly, Zafir. With S1 and T5 Dark, Zafir is able to deal strong AoE damage and have sufficient mana recovery, making them a lot more stable than some of the other DPS. His physical shred on his S3 also helps him deal with boss damage. But even with that shred, he's not as strong as other single target DPS, so bringing a single target DPS to accompany him may be recommended, or running just more damage supports. Now up to this point, most of the DPS that have been suggested are almost exclusively ranged DPS. If you want to use a melee DPS, you are going to want to use the death protection strategy. This is a viable strategy for melee DPS to proceed in Eclipse. How the strategy works is you'll be utilizing Mediana's S3 and Lavrel's S2 light in order to allow the melee to tank and be unable to be killed. It is still recommended to use Frey with this strategy. You can utilize her shield to give CC protection, as well as use the shield to protect Lavrel and Mediana. If either of those two die, the run will end. By using the Perfume of the Queen, you can actually cover your DPS from any stun on hit waves, such as the Wasp waves, so it is highly recommended that you utilize this artifact. Some things to consider when using this strategy. You will only have a brief window at the start of the first fight, 5 seconds, to get your first death protection up and going. For this, I recommend you have Mediana specifically strapped with MP second, so that way she can get enough mana to cast her S3 quickly. Lavrel and Mediana will need to alternate buffs, so there is no gap in the protection. If at any point you slip up and do not have the buff applied, your tank / DPS will die. The strategy also does not protect your backline from the dot damage that's inflicted during waves 26 through 29. This is why I strongly recommend Frey come in the death protection team as well if you're using them for the lower levels. And lastly, I find the strategy to not be as successful as running Glenweiss as a tank. Glenweiss's damage buffs are second to none. So if you have the option to run Glenweiss with a ranged DPS, I would recommend it. This does work as a second team though, if you already have a recommended team built. One benefit to the strategy though is that you are able to utilize a larger range of DPS. Heroes with high single target damage are recommended though for dealing with boss waves, as the longer a boss survives, the more likely they are to take out your priest. I'm not going to talk over all the DPS that are available, but I do want to make special note for Epis, as she's unusually strong in Eclipse. By using S2 Light and the S1 combo, she can defeat any boss within a few seconds. Her S4 stacks up to 100 times, giving her a whopping 1.8 million free attack. With S4 Dark, she has access to infinite mana and double speed cooldown reduction. Her S3 allows her to quickly dispatch the early monster waves to get herself ramped up. If you have a second Spirit Morph ring, you can actually utilize her in the post 40 by pairing her with Glenweiss, Frey, and Ray Hartna. I'll go into this more detail when I do my part 3 on the post 40 waves and how to tackle those waves specifically. I want to specifically talk about the run killer. This is where I see a lot of players get stumped in Eclipse, is waves 26 through 29. Just like in Chapter 8 long ago, you used to take a damage over time buff that was always active. There's no way to cleanse this debuff, and you just have to tank through it. Since you likely cannot heal by this point, it will be difficult to survive, as the damage is percent of max health and will whittle you down. This is the strongest reason of why I recommend Frey. Her shield allows you to protect the backline and keep their HP from falling during these crucial waves. And just to show here, we'll have some pictures of some waves that I did. You can see the start of 26, everyone's health is pretty well up there. However, when we get to the second image here, you can see that by the end of wave 26, as the wave's dying, most of my backline's actually taken significant damage. By the end of wave 28, my backline is dead and my front DPS is soon to follow. Thus this run was destroyed. To further prove my point on why Frey is so pivotal in the early stages of Eclipse, this is a screenshot of a Esker run using Frey, wave 29, and you can see everyone's still full health for the most part. Frey's shield is extremely valuable, and she is by far the meta priest for early Eclipse. Thank you for watching my Eclipse guide. Changes are coming. Vespa has announced that they will be making some changes to Eclipse. We don't know what those changes are just yet. I will monitor them. Once we get updates on that, I'll definitely get new videos out to cover over the changes to Eclipse. Additionally, I will have part 3 coming soon to cover the post 40 wave clears and how they're done.